I'm Daniel Fisher, Director of Product Optimization here at Sweetwater Sound. Today I'm very excited to show you the Seymour Duncan Andromeda Dynamic Delay. This is a digital delay that can also simulate analog delays and has lots of choices in terms of being both mono and stereo. It has true stereo in, true stereo out. It does ping pong, it does reverse, it even does a reverse ping pong, which I haven't seen before. And it also has some really different controls, including the ability to saturate the delays and then dynamically do one of three things. You can either dynamically change the mix, dynamically change the modulation, or dynamically change the saturation or distortion, overdrive. And the way that it does it is kind of neat in that you can use this threshold knob, which lights up to tell you whether you're engaged or not. And it has two modes, a soft and a hard. And what that really means is you can set it so that it happens when you get louder than the threshold, or you can have it happen when you get quieter than the threshold. So some very clever stuff. But the first thing that I have to do before I decide if I even want a delay is to run a really nice analog synth with a sweeping, low-pass filter with resonance, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So first, I take a Moog, and I sweep it. Which is just a wonderful sound. And now I turn it on. So yeah, I really like this delay. It does that very well. Now, that was in digital mode, which whenever I'm doing that trick, I always like the repeats to have full fidelity to give you that nice sprinkle. But now I'll do the same thing in the analog mode. So you can hear the repeats are darker, a little farther in the background, they bloom a little bit. And so it depends on what you're doing, but again, a beautiful sound. Another cool feature is that you can set whether the tails are on or off so that when you hit bypass, either you can have the delay continue until it fades out or it immediately stops. Both methods are very useful. So the next thing that makes this very exciting is that it uses MIDI in. I'll show you a chart here. These are all the various things that you can currently control via MIDI. I say that because it has a USB jack that allows it to update. It also has a user librarian that's coming out soon. And but it gets MIDI clock, and right at the front panel it allows you to change which values of MIDI clock you're using. So the first MIDI example I'm going to show you is using the Sub 37 in arpeggiation mode, and that is currently set to quarter notes, and I'm sending that via MIDI. The MIDI clock is going over here, and this is currently set to quarter notes. So as I play it, you'll hear that the echoes and the arpeggiation line up with each other. Then I'm going to slowly start changing what units of the beats the sequencers go, or the arpeggiation's going at, and I'll also be changing units of the beats of the delay and hearing how they all play against each other. But notice how once it settles out, because as you first change delay times radically, you're going to hear a little weirdness. But once it settles out, you'll start hearing all these beautiful rhythmic components that come out of this. So that's quarter notes on quarter notes. Now dotted eighth. Now eighth. And then eighth note triplets. Okay, now I'm going to start also changing the units of the beat of the arpeggiation against these various ones. So again, something new. Quarter notes. But notice that no matter how I change the speed of the arpeggiation or any of the units of the beats, it's always just lining up perfectly. All right, so now I'm going to start messing with the saturation, the tone, and the modulation, as well as the feedback. And I'm going to start this in the digital ping pong delay, but I may switch that around as I go. That's dry. Now tone. And now saturation. And now modulation. And now do reverse. And now reverse ping pong. Beautiful. So that was a monophonic synthesizer going into the Andromeda. Now I'm going to play a polyphonic synthesizer. This is the Yamaha Reface CS. And got it set to just a plain old sawtooth wave. And the first effect I'm going to do is the stock analog bucket brigade kind of sound, where everything gets duller and muted and blooms a little bit as it rings out. And using that, I can now add some saturation and really kind of crunch up the repeats. You can hear them coming back a lot thicker. And by bringing the mix a little drier, I can kind of compensate for the fact that they're getting louder. Then I've got tone if I want it even darker than that. Pretty dark. And if I add modulation, now we're going to slowly add LFO to pitch sweep, and it's just going to thicken it up in a very nice way. I can go all the way to crazy. And if I want to make the stereo pop even more, I can do analog ping pong. Now every other iteration will go to either side. And if I put some modulation on that, but now where I can go really crazy, even though this has a delay on it, because I'm going into a delay, I can now do something else, like a stereo chorus. This is it dry, without it. But now when I take the stereo chorus into the delay, which also has modulation, it's just a super thick, beautiful thing. And now the same thing on the digital side. So now this is digital ping pong, and with all the other settings being the same. But now you can hear the top end of that, which I can roll off just a little bit. And if I start adding saturation to that, and again back the mix down a little bit, now I've got a thick burly repeat. And to thicken up further, if I add LFO to the synth, and it's going to get picked up in the delay. Now I've got three sources of modulation all going at the same time, and now it's getting really, really thick. So now I'm going to show you the dynamic expression feature, which is what makes this the Andromeda dynamic delay. And basically, if I have it set to hard and the volume level goes louder than this threshold knob, the knob will light up purplish, and that'll tell you that whatever you have over here, either mix or mod or saturation, will be up. When the light goes out, mix or mod or saturation comes down. When you have it in the soft mode, It is on until I exceed that volume level, then whichever one you have set here diminishes. So I'm going to start with hard, and I'm going to show you that without the dynamic expression on, I have feedback way up high, but way more than I would normally use it. But with this set to hard, I'm only going to have that much mix toward wet when I'm actually playing. And the moment I stop playing, you'll see that the mix goes dry and all of a sudden those fade out. So I kind of get best of both worlds. And then it fades out. All right, so now I'm going to set the expression to go to modulation. And I have it still set on hard, which means as I first play, you're going to hear modulation, and I have it fading out here on decay to sustain level, and you're going to hear that modulation fade out like this. And now the modulation's gone. Now I'm going to switch that to soft, which means that this green light's going to be on until my volume level gets low enough. So I have a nice slow decay, and what you're going to hear is no modulation until it's fading out. And now I can do the same thing with saturation, and I have it set to hard. So the initial echoes will have saturation, and as it's fading out, they will clean up, which is kind of neat. And then to reverse that, now as I get my first echoes, they'll be clean. So that's the Andromeda Dynamic Delay by Seymour Duncan, and this is the keyboard version video. If you want to see this with guitar, Don Carr's made an excellent video. If you have any further questions about this delay or any of the equipment we're using, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. My name is Daniel Fisher. Thank you very much for listening.